Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Xiang. If you have not done so already, you can pause and subscribe to my channel. Thanks in advance. U.S. delegation to Asia postponed after Nancy Pelosi tests positive for coronavirus. A spokesman said that the House Speaker received the positive test after having tested negative earlier last week. The announcement came following media reports in Taiwan and Japan that Pelosi would travel to Taiwan after a trip to Japan, becoming the first House Speaker to visit self-governed island in 25 years. Pelosi's Deputy Chief of Staff, Drew Hammill, said Pelosi was asymptomatic and was isolating according to guidance by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The positive diagnosis comes just a day after Pelosi and other congressional figures, all unmasked, stood beside U.S. President Joe Biden for several minutes at an indoor ceremony marking the enactment of Postal Service reform legislation. Despite their proximity, the White House said Biden was not considered a close contact. The CDC determines someone to be a close contact of an infected individual if they are near one another for at least 15 minutes cumulatively over a 24-hour period. Pelosi's office did not say when her trip would be rescheduled nor whether it would include Taiwan. In a rare direct response to an American trip to Taiwan, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says Washington would bear the consequences. Last week, Wang warned that any visit to Taiwan by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi would cross Beijing's red line. In a phone conversation with the French diplomatic consular Emmanuel Bonny, Wang warned that Washington would bear sole responsibility for the consequences of a visit. According to a Chinese Foreign Ministry statement, Wang accused the U.S. of a blatant double standard during his conversation with Bonny. He said, the U.S. called for respect of the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Ukraine, but openly tramples on the red line of the One China principle regarding Taiwan. If the United States insists on going its own way, China will surely make a firm response and the U.S. side will bear all the consequences, he said. China's envoy to Washington, Ching-te, and its embassy lodged protests with the U.S. Congress and the government and called on Pelosi not to visit Taiwan, according to a statement from the embassy. While Washington has not departed from its long-standing policy of strategic ambiguity, its informal ties with Taipei grew closer under former President Donald Trump, whose Secretary of State Michael Pompeo visited the island on a private trip last month. In 2020, Trump's Health Secretary Alex Azar became the highest-ranking serving U.S. official to visit Taipei since Washington switched its official ties to Beijing in 1979. In the same year, then Undersecretary of State Keith Krach also led a delegation to the island. Biden has also rolled out the new guidelines for U.S. diplomats that encourage direct engagement with their Taiwanese counterparts. In two separate visits last November, congressional delegations met with senior officials in Taipei, including Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen. But a visit from Pelosi would carry far greater significance given the power she wields in Washington. The last House Speaker to travel to Taipei was Republican Newt Gingrich, who met then-President Teng-hui in 1997. In late January, Taiwan's Vice President Ching-te held a brief informal talk with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris during a trip to Honduras and a virtual meeting with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi during a stopover in the U.S. On March 2nd, a U.S. delegation met with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen in Taipei. 2 days later, former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo gave a speech in Taipei calling on the U.S. to recognize Taiwan as an independent country. Beijing said that the U.S. should not cross China's red line and vowed to retaliate with decisive measures. However, it did not take any action, while some Chinese media later claimed China was a peace-loving country. Foreign Policy magazine commissioned a poll of 852 international relations experts in the U.S. It was conducted by William and Mary Global Research Institute from March 10 to March 14th. The poll showed 70.8% experts believed China would not use military force against Taiwanese territory or military force in the next year. At the same time, 70.6% of the poll's participants said the U.S. should deploy its military forces to the Taiwan Strait if China attacked Taiwan. The U.S. does not maintain official diplomatic relations with Taiwan, but is required by law to assist its efforts to defend itself, including through arms sales. Just last week, the Biden administration approved the sales of U.S. $95 million worth of equipment to bolster Taiwan's air defense missile systems. Pelosi has criticized China's human rights record, and Taiwan still has the rock-solid support of the U.S., according to Biden. A delegation of former senior defense and security officials was sent by the president in March to visit Taiwan shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This was viewed as a show of support for the threatened democracy. Taiwan continues to be another sore spot in relations between the U.S. and China. Beijing says the island country will be reunified with China by force if necessary, while Washington continues to provide political and military support. Many observers believe Beijing is closely watching the administration's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a measure of what to expect if or when reunification is attempted. It will be a bold sign if Pelosi and a congressional delegation do in fact land in Taiwan in the near future. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I will see you again shortly. Until then, be well.